Welcome to Tuesday. We got a few different things to look at today. I'm very excited. And I thought I would start out with taking a look at the Starfinder miniatures. So again, this is if you're not familiar with it, I'm sure, I have to imagine most of you at least have heard of Pathfinder, if nothing else. Pathfinder is a fantasy role-playing game made by Paizo. It's spun out of Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 when they were doing the D20 system, or when Wizards rather was doing the D20 system that anybody could write their own content for using the open gaming license. And Paizo is when Wizards of the Coast was moving on to Dungeons and Dragons 4.0, there was such a love and appreciation for 3.5 still that Paizo was like, hey, well, why don't we just continue with that? And then made it into the world of Pathfinder, which, yeah, there have been web shows using Pathfinder and all sorts of other stuff. And Pathfinder was super popular for a bunch of years. And then they made Starfinder. So Starfinder is literally the Pathfinder game and universe, but in the future. And it takes place in the same solar system, although the main planet of Pathfinder is missing in the future of Starfinder, so you can't like directly affect things going either way. But it's based on the same rules. It has the same races, the same magic system, the same magic spells, and the same rules. Although then they've since updated Pathfinder to a newer system. But anyway, and then yeah, there are rules for how to like take your Pathfinder character and put him into Starfinder and back and forth. So it's a really cool idea. It's not the first space fantasy setting we've seen, that incorporates magic and spaceships and all that, but it's pretty well done. Obviously lots of cool art and stuff. So there have been miniatures before. These aren't the first. When Starfinder first came out, there were a number of miniatures made by Ninja Division. Ninja Division is an interesting company. You may not have heard that name before, but Ninja Division often does sculpting for miniatures produced by other companies. Famously, Ninja Division did the initial sculpts for the Robotech miniatures for Palladium. Now, we all know that turned out really terribly, but Ninja Division was only responsible for producing like the prototypes before they were cut into pieces by Chinese factories and turned into nightmares. Just like the basic forms were Ninja Division's. So anyway, Ninja Division did a couple of miniatures for Starfinder, a few spaceship packs. All of these things were very expensive, strangely, and I don't know how well they sold, but that was that. And then WizKids, who I'm obviously a big fan of, I cover a lot of their stuff. WizKids got the license and has been cranking out. They did a couple of like packs, like a hero pack of miniatures. I think. Oh, wow! My hopefully you can all still hear me. And thankfully, I haven't been moving around too much because my internet rate went to the crapper. But hopefully, it'll come back. I don't know if you can see any movement. Wow, it's so low. It's like in the 200s. I'm going to assume you can still hear me. And I'm going to... Oh, okay, wait. It's popping up now. Now it's fluctuating wildly. Okay, cool. Well, at least you can still hear me. 10 plus 10, 11 plus 11 equals the same number. 10 plus... Oh my god, my brain is breaking. 10 plus 10, 11, 11 equals the same number. 10. Okay, yeah, because like it'll be back in a second. It hasn't happened lately, but this used to happen at least once per stream. Okay, well. Oh, Dara, so quick math diversion while hopefully my bit rate improves. You all know the trick with multiplying by nines? You move one finger in for each multiple of 9, and then The number is the number of fingers that are on one side of the missing finger and then the other, and then you just move it one each, and every multiple added up equals 9 if you add up the digits. So 1 times 9 is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 1 over here, 8 over here. 3 times 9 is 27. 4 times 9, 36. Yeah, and so on and so forth. And I came up and I was oh, thank you. I was telling Benjamin about that because he I don't know if you saw the tweet from a couple days ago, but he started, I know, right? It's crazy if you've never thought about it, nobody ever showed you. He learned the game, the Snake game. He installed it on our Roku of all things. But he was amazed at how good I was on it, and I was like, dude, I've been playing this game for, I mean, at least at the minimum 25 years ago when I was in high school. We had the Snake game on our TI-80 whatever calculators in school, and we used to create games. We had actually programmed games on our calculators back in high school, and I don't remember what class it was for, but I created I animated hands and made a nines multiplication animation game on there. So I remembered that, and I was very proud of myself for 5 minutes. Anyway, back to miniatures. So Starfinder Battles Planets of Peril is the new set. It's blind box, so you get 3 random miniatures per box. It comes out on my birthday, March 17th, so in a couple of weeks. Yeah, I know the 9 thing. It's trippy when you think about it, but yeah, and even like 81, 9 times 9, and then 9 times 10, 90, because it's 9 on this side and then 0 on this side. It's cool. It's a neat trick if you can't remember your gazintas and you're doing your 9s. All right, so let's take a look at some minis. There are little teeny tiny creatures like the Electrovore. Now, one thing I talked about in the review is that some of these are like obviously really sci-fi characters, but a lot of these, they're just wacky monsters. I mean, you could use these things for any role-playing system. There's really a lot that you can do, a lot of functionality with these miniatures, even beyond like, this is specifically an Electrovore from Starfinder in your Starfinder games. So it's a little thing. I really like this one. It's like a super colorful dog creature thing. It's got a thing on his chest down there. And again, like you could use this in anything. Fantasy game, sci-fi game, post-apocalyptic, whatever game. This thing is like a hideous mosquito creature on legs. I don't like it. It's weird. Oh, and another really cool thing, if these do come painted, these are pre-painted miniatures like they do for Pathfinder battles. And WizKids has done a ton of Pathfinder battles sets over the years. One of the neat things about Starfinder, if you're not familiar with the game and the just the overall lore of it, is that as we see in some of the better sci-fi properties, what was I going to say? Not all player character races are necessarily humanoid. So you have these really interesting, very exotic alien-looking things, but you can play this in the game. I don't remember exactly what this is. They all have really crazy names. This is a Bantrid. But yeah, you can play these really wild alien shapes, and they all, it all has its own rules, and it's all based on familiar stats and things. How many unpainted miniatures? Oh, well, that's a whole separate topic. We don't need to talk about that. More PC player character races, including everybody's favorite Skittermander. So you know how, if you're familiar with Pathfinder at all, you know about the popularity of their goblins. They went with their own unique style for the art for their goblins, and they made them really silly, and they've done a bunch of goblin one-off adventures, especially for things like free RPG day and stuff like that. And so in many ways, the goblin is the mascot of Pathfinder. So similarly for Starfinder, it's the Skittermander here. It's this little 6-armed creature. And again, this is a player character race. They're small, but you can play them and do all sorts of fun things with them. And here's one of those. Yeah, their goblins are great. There are robots. You get a small robot and a medium robot. And again, like really functional, but just really cool. I love this one, this medium. It's called an SRO. They're robots. I can't remember what it stands for, but again, just great miniatures, lots of detail, cool stuff. Some of the other races, so Formians, ant people. Dare you're a bot sometimes. Well, we all have our times. Plant people. And then I absolutely love these two. So the Osharu are basically like slug people. And so he's sort of like a mystic. I mean, there's so much detail. It's so great. There's even like writing on his shirt. He's a cool dude. And then absolutely one of my favorites, the Patra Stalker. So they are cat people. But again, like really good detail on these miniatures. And like, is this a male or a female? I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can play it as anything you want. And again, like this thing, totally play this in so many different games. There's nothing super science fiction about it. I mean, yes, technically it looks like that might be a pistol under there, but who knows? You can play this in anything. Fantasy game, whatever. I like it. I like it a lot. More monsters and aliens. There's a sub-theme of the Swarm. There are these aliens that are rampaging through the galaxy that you have to often fight. So here are a couple different versions of Swarm aliens. And again, these could be used in just about any role-playing game that has any sort of creatures in it. Alien octopus crustacean people in armor and carrying blasters. Anyone? So yeah, some really great designs and cool stuff. Oh, these are cool. These are Nihili. They're like space zombies, space undead made from people who have died from exposure to vacuum, and then they can create their own like black hole energy. Pretty freaky. I don't think you can play as the Swarm. I think they are just bad guys. My other favorite, as I've talked about before, the uplifted bear Avenger. Yes, it is a super bear in the future, walking on his legs with full power armor, wielding what's essentially a thunder hammer for more hammer. Can I use these as my Terminators? I don't know, but they're pretty cool. This is a large. It's got the bigger base, and we have other large characters, including this 4-armed fella. Yes, I can. Thank you. The Serakian sniper, like this thing with its energy wings. Do you want to play a dragon in space holding a gun? You can do that in Starfinder. Oh, and I should say that many of these, the miniature is based very specifically on a piece of artwork from one of the Starfinder books. So, including this dragonkin, this is the entry from the Alien Archive book. I forget which one this one's in, but like this is the artwork on the page, and then they turned that into the actual miniature. I know, right? Who doesn't want to play a dragon? And then beyond these, there are some really crazy creatures in this set. And when I say really crazy creatures, I mean, things like these. I don't even know if it's going to be able to pick up all these wacky colors. But again, like, if you just saw these miniatures, would you know what game they were from or what the exact setting was? I mean, this thing could be a psionic monster from, you know, a Dungeons and Dragons type world or anything. Who knows? Yes, Starfinder does have. It does. You can play elves and dwarves and halflings and anything like that. They do have the rules for them. Yes. Here's a dinosaur thing that's covered in eyes, and it has like an upside down head. Freaky. Oh yeah, like the Star Trek animated stuff. Yeah, that's true. Oh, there's the biggest of the swarm characters, the Thresher Lord, which again, like really good detail with these blue markings. Oh, freaky cybernetic golem. And then last, but certainly not least, whatever the hell this thing is. It's like a plant tarantula with leech mouth tentacles. It's called a Vrachinea. It is wild. So yeah, some very interesting, very cool miniatures. I was very impressed with this. WizKids went through a thing where they're sort of like, "Are you interested in looking at any of our other miniatures?" And I said, "You know, sure. I love all this kind of stuff." And they showed me some pictures from the set. And I was like, "Wow, I would definitely like to check that out because these are neat." Oh, and I should say that while I had seen some previews of some of the models from this set, what I didn't know until I opened the box they sent me is that there are even spaceships in this set. So there are two quote-unquote hero ships. So essentially in Pathfinder and in Starfinder, there's a society that you join as a player character, and then they send you on missions, and you have access to resources and things like that. So here are two of the most typically used ships. So chances are when you play the game, you will have played in one of these. They're sort of like standard transports that they use, the Pegasus and the Drake. So they're kind of like pretty classic sci-fi designs. And they come on the slightly different bases. This game has tons of rules for starship combat and how to make and customize spaceships and all of that good stuff. And then 3 ships from one of the more belligerent alien races. So here's their fighter craft. It's a really unique design. A transport drop ship. I don't know how this thing lands. It looks I mean, with that bridge, it looks capital scale, and obviously like it must hover and disgorge its things. I don't know all the details, the in-universe details on this one. And then the dreadnought for this, which again, if you look closely, you can see like all these gun turrets and yeah, just really cool. And I'm like, oh, spaceship miniatures? Yeah, I'm super down with that. These are going on a spaceship shelf, not with my other miniatures. And then last but not least, oftentimes what WizKids will do is they'll release one of these blind box sets. And then I know this thing, like, maybe it can hover and then drop things out of it, but that's not landing. So they'll have, like I said, a blind box set, and then they'll have something special that you can buy off to the side that's not blind box. Then you can, use it for whatever. So in this case, it's the docking bay set, which is just stuff to fill out your scenes, whether it's a docking bay or a storage, a cargo hold, or a space station. So you get these big old crates, and these things are heavy. I expected them to be hollow, and they are not. These are powerful. So you get these big 2x2 storage containers, these 1x2 storage containers, and these can be anything, like, you know, whatever you want to call these in your game, whatever game you're playing, you can incorporate these 4 of these little storage things. Now they're a little. You could use these in Warhammer just as like scatter terrain and stuff. You know, you might be able to, if you glued some of this down to make something bigger, you could make some, you know, like an actual terrain piece. I love that it comes with a bench, a futuristic sci-fi bench. But like, what a great piece of terrain, just to like make it feel like a real place. I don't know. I'm really impressed by the bench. It's silly, but it's cool. And then what I think most people are going to be excited about is it comes with a little cargo hauler that attaches to this little flatbed, and it has more rings, so you could have an endless string of them if you had. Yes, Darrow. I know that a lot of these things are things that talented hobbyists could make, but it's cool for the rest of people. And this thing totally looks like something out of Halo. And also, I really like that they designed this with the miniatures in mind. Obviously, the miniatures aren't posable. You can't really sit them down and stuff like that. But if you see here, there's a slot underneath the seats. And I'm sure not every miniature, but where's my stalker? Where did my stalker go? That's wild. Anyway, but if you have one of their miniatures, they can slot in underneath there, and so they can actually be drive-in, or at least in there, which I think is a really cool, nice little feature. Oftentimes, the miniatures don't interact with with their terrain pieces very well. And then again, you can put whatever you wanted on the, you know, if there could be cargo and a person, you know, whatever it is. So yeah. Anyway, so that is the Starfinder Battles Planets of Peril booster set and Docking Bay premium set. So if you're interested, you can check that out. Like I said, that comes out March 17th. Easy to remember because it's my birthday. It's Cameron Rice's birthday. Yes, we have the same birthday. It's St. Patrick's Day. It's just a great day for everybody. So there. Yes, you could put the bench on the flatbed for sure. Okay. All right, so that was miniatures. Let's get into toys. So if we go back in time, talking about DC Comics and Green Lantern. Of course, the original Green Lantern was Alan Scott. He was a magical Green Lantern in sort of the older superhero, more fantastical style. And then later on, we get a little bit more. Yes, more benches. Give me more benches. I want connecting benches so I can make them into lines, and yeah, I would totally get a kick out of all that kind of stuff. We get Hal Jordan, a new style of Green Lantern where we actually learn about the Green Lantern Corps and this organization that exists out in the universe to protect, the universe, and so on and so forth. So in the early 70s, DC Comics introduces another human Green Lantern. And we find out that when the Ring selects someone to be Green Lantern, it also picks up on alternates, just in case that main Green Lantern can't do it, is incapacitated, has to go off on some mission. Now, this sort of contradicts some of the lore with the idea that when a ring gets passed on, it finds somebody at that moment. but you know, I mean, in this case, it's like, okay, well then Rings should just scan planets and pick out all the best people, and then just keep a database and then go right to them later. But whatever, it doesn't matter. So anyway, the alternate for Hal Jordan that ends up becoming Green Lantern when Hal Jordan is off doing other garbage is John Stewart. Now, originally, so anyway, okay, so this is DC Collectibles, again, company that's not around anymore. From their Justice League line, get a picture of the figure on the side. Designer, sculptor, Robert Linders, who's done a lot of really, really great figures. Again, a cool silhouette, so if you've got a bunch of figures and you wanted to keep them in the boxes, you could line them up on their sides and see all the cool silhouettes. And then a couple buy more stuff on the back. So in the original story, John Stewart was an architect, and then later they added that he was also a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. So they retconned that a little bit, but John Stewart is an awesome character. It was interesting when they first introduced him in the early 70s, before my time, but I've gone back and read. Yeah, no battery in this one, just the figure. But I have gone back and read them, and the writers and editors at the time had talked about how they wanted another Green Lantern from Earth, and someone they could play off of Hal Jordan and go back and forth. And Diggle's great. And they decided to make it an African American character, which was momentous at the time. And what not everybody realizes is that John Stewart is actually the first DC African American superhero. Get all these plastic bits off. And so yeah, in his initial story, when he's recruited, he did not get along with John Stewart at the beginning. There was distrust. John Stewart was a very angry young man. There's some 70s tropes that didn't age great, but not too bad. But then Hal quickly learns to trust John, and he becomes a very great Green Lantern. He'd go on to have a bunch of adventures in the comic books over the years. Sorry about that. He would take over as the main Earth Green Lantern for a while at times. They would phase Hal out or have him go do other stuff. Yes, and then very famously, in the early to mid 2000s, John was the Green Lantern in the Justice League cartoons, Justice League and then Justice League Unlimited, introducing or being like the Green Lantern to an entire generation of people who, again, especially watch their superhero content in cartoons. Now, this toy is a latter day DC Collectibles toy, so it does have pretty good articulation, much better than what we used to see from DC Direct and early DC Collectibles. So again, yes, he does not come with a lantern, but in comparison to a lot of other and previous toys from this company, he's got much better articulation. So there is somewhat of a trade-off there. You can see he's got these ball joints for his thighs here that actually work pretty well and don't look too weird. I mean, some poses, if you have his legs spread too far, it'll look a little weird, but he's got a nice range of movement. The ankle articulation makes it so that even with sort of wide, big stances, you'll still be able to get him to stand up, which I love. There's nothing worse than a figure that won't stand. Yeah, you can do super kicks, all sorts of cool stuff. Arm articulation is good. He could have been helped by a double articulated elbow, so you get that arm up a little bit higher, but it's fine. It's certainly more than I need to pose this and look good on a shelf. He's got the sort of like the full symbol ring. Oh, there you go. That's good. On his hand. What the actual ring looks like for Green Lanterns changes with every artist. So don't ever get too hung up on what the shape of the actual ring looks like. People can get a little crazy about that. And John Stewart famously did not use masks. At the very beginning, the Green Lantern uniform sort of comes with a mask when you first put it on. If you're not aware, the Green Lantern uniform is not clothing. It is energy generated by the ring that sheaths the wearer, and there is a standard version of the uniform that then, once you're familiar enough with how the ring works, you can customize how it looks. That's why the Green Lanterns look different with respect to what their uniform looks like. They've done some silly things with this later, especially with Hal and getting close to his lady friends and them talking about like, ooh, the black part of the uniform feels cool, but the green part feels hot, and it's like, okay, we don't need that. That's that's too much. But yes, it's customized, and typically when you first sort of turn on the costume, yeah, it's CG, exactly. It does come with a mask to protect your identity, but John was like, no, I'm not doing that. I am myself, and then he had a more public identity. Um, yeah, Diggle being Green Lantern, I don't know. It was cute that they gave us those teases, but I don't know. Maybe, who knows? I am now at least maybe 2 seasons behind on Flash. I stopped. I think I stopped watching all of that when Arrow ended. I don't know if I've seen anything since then. And I wasn't like boycotting, like, no, end of Arrow, I'm not watching it anymore. I think I just kind of fell out of it. And then we unplugged, and that stopped me from watching stuff at the time. And then, yeah, as Arsenal Roy 2K says, John Stewart over the years has done a lot of different things. Obviously, he's been Green Lantern forever, and then he was a Dark Star for a while. He was paralyzed for a little while, and then Hal fixed him, and then he became a Green Lantern again. And he's been. I have not seen Superman and Lois. I've heard nothing but great things about it, so I gotta go check that out at some point. John Stewart has also worn other rings. He's worn a Black Lantern ring. He's worn a Indigo ring. So he's done, he's dabbled in other cores briefly. But yeah, just a super great character. They've done a lot with him over the years. Oh, right, the Ultraviolet ring. Yep. Can't forget that one. And yeah, and he served on the Justice League. He's been the leader of the Green Lantern Corps at times. So going back, so obviously again, this is a modern, and I think this figure is absolutely fantastic as far as the sculpt. It is again based on some pretty specific looks from this character and the costume in the comics, and they give him these sort of metallic green eyes, which it's a choice. Definitely a choice. Yeah, so let's look at some other how Green Lantern John Stewart's from over the years. Um, Probably, let's see. So here is from an old set of they're just plastic figures attached to these bases. But here's sort of a classic version of John, and yeah, so he's altered his costume over the years and done a few different versions of it. But yeah, this one had this thinner connecting piece in the middle. Kind of makes it look like he's wearing underpants that are attached to his bib a little bit. And then this was his his mosaic look. So yeah, this adds a lot of white in the middle. That is very apparent. This is the Mattel figure. I believe this one was the one that came in that big multi-pack of Green Lantern characters. Again, though, even this one, like, just really good head sculpt. It's interesting to see a character like this who doesn't typically have. Oh yeah, the white gloves. Yeah, doesn't typically have um, a mask. And oh, that's weird. Camera just made a weird noise right by my face. Uh, and just to see like all the really good head sculpts they've been able to do on a character without a mask. Like sometimes masks make it harder to get good head sculpts. Well, welcome, Hudsonizer. I hope you slept well. Oh, Erdansk. I don't know all the details about the Superman and Lois writers, but I will. I'll look it up. Yeah, I mean the white gloves are definitely more of a traditional Green Lantern thing, but yeah, I can definitely understand why you may not like that feature. And then when we're talking about the animated version, uh, similar costume, although this one has the costume goes all the way over the hands, and then they gave him the goatee for a while. I've been fairly outspoken in my dislike for for Justice League animated toys. The cartoon had a very specific animation style, character style, which is fine for animation. These things make terrible, terrible toys. The proportions do not look good in plastic typically. There have been some better versions, but I don't typically like them, and they are very difficult to stand up often. This one has very splayed feet, which actually helps for to stand him up. Usually the legs are really tiny and go straight down, and they wobble all over the place and won't stand up. Add a cape for somebody like Batman and Superman, it usually makes it worse, not better. Yeah, but again, it's a style. A lot of people know a lot of DC characters only because of these cartoons, so that's fine. It's all good. There have been some really good smaller scale John Stewart figures. So here we have one from the Infinite Heroes line, which again, oh man, I love this line. So this is the same costume as we have here, just in miniature. And again, pretty good head sculpt, even a little tiny figure. And then more recently, although we're still talking several years ago, DC Collectibles did their own line of 3 3/4 inch figures that were all Lantern related, that were only sold at conventions. I'm trying to think if that's 100% true. I think it is. I think they were all convention exclusives. They weren't all that hard to track down, but they did make a John Stewart in that line as well. This toy didn't come together quite so well. The proportions are weird. They gave him this big joint here in the torso, but then this part up here is just, it's so wide. I don't know. It's not right. It was so close. Pretty good head sculpt. Lots of articulation, obviously. I like the little shiny bits. If you can see in the black paint, there are little flecks that look really good in person. But that's not right. Yeah. And then obviously, as with just about every superhero character, I have a million HeroClix figures of John Stewart, but I don't have them out. They're not easy to get to. I've shown pictures before of how my HeroClix are all put away. They're organized in boxes in a closet, and they're stacked up almost to the ceiling at this point. So I couldn't go grab those for today. Especially during the Jeff Johns run, we got a lot of really neat details about specific Green Lantern characters. There's famously there's a couple page spread where he talks about how each Green Lantern has some unique aspects to him or her. Things like Kilowog. If you're familiar with Kilowog, he's the big, buff, monstrous looking Green Lantern who is actually way smarter than he looks, and is typically the drill instructor, although not always. And that, like, when Kilowog uses his ring, it actually makes sound along with the energy projection, which doesn't typically happen. But then the big deal with John is that because he's an architect and he always thinks things through, that all of his constructs, you can see the inner workings of them, and they are all basically made from the inside out, which is a cool detail. Again, with his Marine Corps background, he will frequently create constructs of Marines and other U.S. military people. He also makes a lot of guns. He makes sniper rifles. He was a sniper, so you get all sorts of cool things like that. So yeah. Continuing on, talking about Earth Green Lanterns. So, all right, so here's something funny. So I've got John here, and again I have other versions of John around. I was looking at my Earth Green Lanterns. Obviously, I have a million versions of Hal Jordan. Got a whole shelf full of them. I have a couple of versions of Guy Gardner, arguably the best Green Lantern ever, but that's a conversation for another day. I absolutely love this one. He made his own kind of silly costume, but it works for him. Just so great. That head sculpt, the attitude on it is perfect for the character. So, like, okay, got that one. Got some of the newer Green Lanterns I'll talk about in just a second. And I always thought, I know I have at least one 6-inch scale or thereabouts, Kyle. And I looked, and I don't. I have never been a fan of Kyle, and I don't even have a full size figure of him. I do have him in 3 3/4 inches, and I have HeroClix and all the rest. But I actually don't have a figure of him in this scale. I could have sworn I did. I looked and looked, and unless I put him somewhere else, I don't know. All my Green Lantern stuff is in the same place. I don't know. I guess I don't have one. It's fine. It's fine. Yes. So, yes. Like I said, Guy Gardner, that's a character we could talk a lot about. A character that has gone through so much over the years, and they've turned... When he was first introduced, he was a very serious character. He was a lawyer. He was a gym teacher, like all this other stuff. And then they made him into a joke character for a very, very long time. And then, as with a lot of things, Jeff Johns rehabilitated him into a character with a lot more depth, and then they spun him off and did some really great stories with him in Green Lantern Corps, and like he genuinely became a really good, really interesting character. But yeah, a lot of people think of him still as more of like a joke character, and I'm sure they'll continue to do that. So the next thing I'm going to open up today in the same line of toys is this one. Another Earth Green Lantern by the name of Simon Baz. So again, same packages, same style package. We get the silhouette there on the side, which is really cool because it's got his unique mask on there. Other things that you can buy. Yeah, I mean, yes. Jeff Johns wasn't the only one to write Guy doing more interesting things, but now, just as in the 70s, adding an African-American Green Lantern in John Stewart was noteworthy, Simon here is a Muslim American. He is, what is he? He's Lebanese, I think. So that was, noteworthy. Some controversy as to this character's introduction and his backstory. He was a criminal. He was wrongly implicated and suspected to be a terrorist. So, you got some of that. The gun stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. Originally, he was a car thief and a street racer, and got caught up in some bad stuff with that. One of the through lines for this character's original stories was that he doesn't trust authority, has a very difficult time trusting anyone because of his life experiences, which again makes sense. He's wrongly accused of things by law enforcement. Sorry about the noise. Give me 1 second here. Oh my god, my frame rate dropped again. Hopefully you're all still with me. No, it's not you. My frame rate dropped hard. Must not be having great internet this morning. It's trending back up. Yeah, sorry about that. Second time this morning. I don't know. LA internet, what are you going to do? It looks like it's stable. It looks good now. So, again, obviously a very different look than a traditional Green Lantern costume uniform. And this one was pretty instantaneous. He's like, nope, I'm doing things differently. Now, this figure is what I would call a traditional DC Collectibles or DC Direct figure. Much less articulation than this one. Also much less functional. But it's okay. Still looks good, and that's all that I really care about. Lacking no ankle, only a T crotch, so the hips just go up and down, and they're very restricted. Ball joints in the shoulders, at least, and in the head. So, what is unique about this Green Lantern Simon Baz here, other than the obvious in the very different style of the costume? Number one, he has an Arabic phrase on his arm that's written in Green Lantern energy, which is cool. I don't remember what it means. Oh, I'm a bad Green Lantern fan. Can't remember. So yes, when he becomes a Green Lantern, again, he doesn't trust. He has an issue with trust. Very important for the character. So he doesn't trust that his Green Lantern energy will always be there for him, and that is why he carries a gun. Later on, it becomes an interesting plot point. The gun was used in a crime, and then he has to decide what he's going to do with it. Eventually, he does hand it over to Commissioner Gordon, so it becomes a part of his character. I am not going to display him holding the gun, but you can put it in the holster, which is always appreciated when figures have real working holsters. He's got a pretty cool belt with little things on the belt. It's almost like a utility belt kind of thing. So Farsi, you know what? I don't know. If anybody can tell, we can look it up, or Arsenal Roy 2K, if you know, let us know. But yeah, I confess I do not know. But as soon as we find out, I would be happy to share the information. Yeah, I've had this toy for a while. I haven't opened it yet, but I'm excited to have it on the shelf because it looks so different. It adds this cool, super light green, basically yellow, which I think is going to really stand out with all my other figures. And not too long after Simon hit the scene, we did get yet another Earth Green Lantern, and our first Lady Earth Green Lantern with Jessica Cruz. Now, because these characters are, I mean, they've been around for years now, but there are not a lot of toys of these. They do both exist in HeroClix. So again, I've got HeroClix figures of them. Not handy, but I'm trying to think, and I think these are the only action figures of these. The only traditional action figures. There have been some other versions of Jessica in like the superhero girls style, and oh, is my internet bouncing around again? Jeez, so bad today. Here, let me just set these out and then I'll just talk, so it won't matter with the movement. Yeah, and like I said, there have been some other Jessicas, and they did Jessica in a couple of different statue forms. Wrong Jess. That's fine. All Jessicas are good. But yeah, and obviously they're not the same style. This one is Mattel from their multiverse line right before they lost the license, and this one is DC Collectibles. But yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? We can only collect what is available. They were both, like I said, Simon was around for a little while before Jessica became Green Lantern. Oh my god, my bitrate is just awful. I apologize. I'm just not gonna move anything. Hopefully you can still hear me. There ain't nothing I can do about it. So there's that. When Jessica became a full member of the Green Lantern Corps, I'm not going to get into her story either right now because it's long and complicated and deals with some very esoteric characters in the DC universe, specifically Volthoom, who has gotten a whole crazy backstory relatively recently. So that's a thing, and Power Ring, and we can talk about that some other day. But yeah, once she became a full member of the Corps, at that time, Hal Jordan was in charge of the whole Corps, and he sort of made them linked by having them share a battery. It was a lot, but yeah. I don't think either one of these characters is currently active in the comics. Correct me, Arsenal Roy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, they're out there, but I don't think they're featured in any books. But I don't know. Like I said, I am behind in my current comic book lore. Man, internet connection is still not great. Ooh, bitrate is bad. Bitrate is. I assume you can all still hear me though, at least. Oh, MXA Ghost, thank you so much. Courage in Arabic. Thank you. That, yes, courage. That's right. Okay, yeah. So they exist still in the comic books. They just don't have starring roles. Yeah, they both have unique things going on with them. Jessica, again, because she became a Green Lantern through, again, this guy Volthoom and the Power Ring stuff. I don't want to get into that because that's way deep lore. And then Simon, though, had a connection with the White Lantern stuff and could use some of that energy to heal and see the future a little bit. I don't know how much of that they're just sort of ignoring at this point. It got a little weird, but it's all good. So yeah, I was gonna say that I now have at least one figure of every Earth Green Lantern, but I guess I don't have one in the scale of Kyle. I should get a Kyle figure. Kyle's he's fine. He's not my favorite, but he's fine. And again, a lot of people, Kyle was their Green Lantern. Like when they were introduced to comics, Kyle was the only Green Lantern for a very long time. Until Hal came back and they reformed. Well, they sort of made a little bit of a core before Hal came back, but that was the main reintroduction of the Green Lantern Corps. Yeah, I really wish there was a better Jessica figure. This one's okay. Hey, Nightmare, welcome. Interesting, Hudsonizer. I was never really into the Legion of Superheroes. they were always sort of around. I've read some of their storylines, but that never really interested me all that much. Nightmare doing okay, doing all right. How are you doing? But yeah, this one's cool. I like my Simon. I like his feet even have their treads. It's a nice detail. Thriving. That's awesome. That is good to hear. I don't know how many people, I don't know how many people are using that word when answering that question these days. How are you doing? Thriving. I love it. Let's see. Okay, so here's a character. We'll jump to another property. Here's a character that I know very little about. Free Skill 2020, welcome. So we do have John Stewart here. And then, yeah, this is a character they introduced later on, more recently in the comic books. This is Simon Baz. So he's yet another, oh, and he dropped his, see, that's why you don't want to have guns, because they just fall, you drop them. Yeah, so Simon Baz is another Earth Green Lantern that they introduced later on. So over at Marvel, there is a character, well, a number of characters. Why he has a gun, it's a very long story, but he didn't trust his Green Lantern power when he got it, and then had the gun for a little while. Doesn't have it anymore. It was a plot point for a little while. Honestly, a lot of the reason why they did it is because that was when they introduced a bunch of characters with basically like cover shots that took place a little bit in the future, and it was like, oh, there's going to be a character from, but we don't know who he is, but here's some art of that character, and obviously it was very compelling to show a new Green Lantern, and he's holding a gun, and what's that all going to be? And then we got the story of why. Again, it was a thing. I'm not going to say I love the storyline, but it made sense. Batman is your Green Lantern. I have Batman Green Lantern toys. They actually made a couple of those. He's been Bruce Wayne has been Batman Bruce Wayne has been Batman. Bruce Wayne has used a Green Lantern ring on a couple of locations, couple of instances. Hold on 1 second. And again, I know Bruce Wayne is Batman. Typical slip, but boom! Look at that. With the ring, with essentially Hal's costume. There's a translucent energy bat on there. It's got the greened out cape. Angry face. Oh yeah, nothing is getting through to those nipples. They are protected. Free Skill, Batman has also had the yellow ring at one point. So your instincts are right on the money. There was after Hal came back, there was a team up a team up issue with Hal and Batman, and sort of it was their chance to work together again and for Batman to learn how to trust Hal again. Thank you so much for the follow, Free Skill. We do toys on Tuesday and then other stuff on other days. Yes, Batman is excellent at using fear. That's basically his whole MO. But yeah, it was an important issue because when Hal went bad, and he did go bad, and then they retconned it a little bit later. But when he went bad in Emerald Twilight, and then became Parallax the first time, obviously it broke a lot of people's hearts, and Batman, well, once you go bad to Batman, you're always bad. So Batman had a very hard time trusting him again. So they had an issue where they went up against the new version of the Tattooed Man they worked together, and then at one point Hal was like, here's the ring, try it on so you can understand what I go through. And then again, this was Jeff Johns writing and adding a whole layer of that. Basically, to activate the ring, you have to dig really deep down into your own past trauma, essentially, and sort of relive what gave you inner strength, things like that. And so Batman, of course, is full of inner trauma and is able to manifest the power of a Green Lantern. And again, he's in different stories, and then there are whatchamacalls them, Elseworld stories with Batman as Green Lantern, and those there's a story of Superman as Green Lantern. So yeah, so other people have worn the ring as well. In Rebirth, when Hal literally first came back, even Oliver Green Arrow wears the ring for a very just one scene, and is barely able to get it to activate, but is able to basically shoot one arrow out of it, which was pretty cool. And then again talks about how like the immense stress and pain you have to put yourself through to activate the ring, and it's like, well, does that really jive with what we've seen forever in Green Lantern comics? I don't know, but it's fine. So yeah, so now we're going to switch over to Marvel for the last unboxing for today. So this is Death's Head. Now, like I said, I don't know a ton about this character. When this toy came out, I was really excited for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's just a wacky looking robot dude in armor toy. It's going to look cool on the shelf. And I have a recollection of reading something with Death's Head in it when I was much younger in Marvel Comics. So, and then I went and I looked up a little bit more when this first came out, which was a while ago. Death's Head is really weird. It's a British thing. He's a bounty hunter from the future. Right, I'm just going to read this. Marvel's Death's Head. Originally constructed as a host body for the psychotic mage Lupex, the mechanoid being known as Death's Head was stolen and given a mind of its own. Now this self-styled freelance peacekeeping agent roams both space and time as a mercenary, forever searching for his next contract. So it's future, they've used him in a couple of different weird ways over the years. There are different versions of Death's Head that sometimes look very different. Sometimes they're different characters, sometimes they're the same character in different points in time. It's weird stuff. The character has a very odd accent that typically they write in really annoying comic booky ways, like when you're trying to write out someone's accent. Yeah, I mean, if you want to look up more, yeah. Oh, you know what? I think the Transformers thing may actually have been the first time I ever saw the character. That's where I might have first seen him. But yeah, he's popped up in weird places, again, having to do with sci-fi stuff and time stuff. One thing that's really annoying with toys that have capes is I'll often do the packaging like this. So the figure is in the front of this plastic tray, but there's a slot where the cape actually goes behind it. And it makes it so it's not easy to get the toy out without trying to fold and squish the cape through. So typically I will just cut the package so it's easier to get them out. Unless it's this kind of plastic that does not want to separate. There we go. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Marvel UK come on, hand was stuck. Marvel UK was its own. Wow, that just shot across the room. Marvel UK was its own completely separate company for a very long time, doing its own Transformer comics, its own Star Wars comics. Yeah, sorry about the noise. I don't like hearing it in real life. I'm sure it's not fun hearing it over the stream. But yeah, the whole Marvel UK thing is actually really interesting comic book history, and how the Marvel UK stories came to the United States, or if they did, and how, and like what the shape of the pages were. There's a lot there that you could research. Okay, so already some things I don't like about this toy. The way this cape thing is attached is awful. I don't know if mine is just loose or if... Nope, it's just kind of junky. I was looking to see if it's supposed to connect to his back, and there are holes in his back where there could have been pegs on the cape to plug in, but there aren't. It's just loose. Same thing in the front, actually. Well, that's just cheap. Could I glue it? I could. It's just like that. Okay. Let's see. These figures typically had really good articulation. This looks like it does as well. The skirt is going to impede the legs, but again, I'm just going to pose this to put on my shelf, so that's not a huge imposition. We've got single jointed elbows, double jointed knees, and ankles, which is fine. Okay, there we go. That joint did not want to start moving, but there we go. Oh my goodness. Very tight elbow joints. I don't want to break it. I will leave it as it is. So yeah, this character is sort of a bounty hunter, mercenary kind of thing. So he's got a lot of weapons. How are you supposed to... Am I missing a piece? Oh, I see. Okay. That's how it works. I was trying to figure out how this all went together. He can wear the shield on an arm, but the way that... Yeah, this joint is essentially fused. You can try heating it up, and that'll make the plastic softer. Yeah, I don't want to break it. If you heat it up, then you might be able to get it working. But that is stuck. So yeah, essentially the way you would do this is you can attach the weapons to the shield, and then, oh man. Okay, and then there are little notches in the back of the cape where you can plug in the shield. All right, I gotta say, I'm not impressed. The plastic on these is super soft. There's a little bit of detail. They put some scratches on here, but it's so soft. I mean, look at how it's all bent. There's not much to it. They easily could have made these full-size weapons so he can actually hold these and have them plug into this shield. I'm not impressed. Let's just put it that way. It'll look fine once I put it all together and set it up on the shelf. That's a good question. How old is this? Not very. It's 2013. Okay, well, I guess it's a little bit older than I thought, but still, it's a fully modern action figure made by Hasbro. It shouldn't have all of these problems. Maybe, one problem, but yeah. Obviously a lot going on in the sculpt, so I can't fault it for that. And yes, he does look like this in the comics at times anyway, with this weird underbite tusk thing. And the colors are right out of the comics as well. Some nice stuff going with the battle damage. and all those scratches. That's cool. The paint, actually, they do paint all the way around the back, which doesn't always happen. So yeah, it looks good. I don't like the cape issues. Yeah, it does. Yeah, he is sort of orky, and that combined with his weird speech patterns can make him seem a little silly sometimes, frankly. Yeah, and he says yes at the end. Yeah, he's kind of he's a weird character for sure. British, what are you gonna do? So yeah, I'll get this guy to a good place and set him up on the shelf, and then I will never touch him again because he's not going to be fun to play with, essentially. But that's okay. That's fine. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I know we spent a few minutes at the beginning talking about the Starfinder battles, but I am really genuinely impressed by that miniature set. If you are interested in finding out any more, you can go to figures.com and read my review. It's up there with pictures of all those miniatures. And then, yeah, I really love doing a deep dive on John Stewart and talking about the Green Lantern stuff. I still have more Green Lantern things we can open and talk about in the future. Mostly Hal Jordan related, naturally, as it's going to be. But, yeah, so that's going to do it for me. Let me see if there's somebody to raid. So today is Tuesday. Typically, we have the Doomsday stream over on Jessica's channel. I don't know if that's going to happen today. I'm going to assume at this point that we are not going to have that stream, but follow Jessica and find out for sure a little bit later on. Obviously, Jessica is going through some things if you've been keeping up with her stuff, and yeah, I don't know if she's going to be up for streaming today or not. Otherwise, tomorrow I will be back here 10 a.m. Pacific time for Warhammer Wednesday, and we're going to continue with our Slaaneshi demons, building those demonettes, finishing the arms and then the heads, and then moving on to the Seekers and the Chariot. So I'm very excited about that. And Myths and Video Games tomorrow, playing more of Jotun, which is very cool. Very interesting, animated-looking game. Very impressed with that. Yeah, so that's what I've got going on. I hope everyone is having a good week. I also am still working on a bunch of reviews. Wonder Woman HeroClix is coming, and this is a major set for a lot of reasons. It's our first DC set in a while. HeroClix comes out with a bunch of Marvel sets, but DC are much more spread out these days. Return of a lot of fan favorite characters. This is the first set coming along with a whole new rules system. We've got a new basically a new kind of starter set along with it that's a little bit different. It has some cool stuff. I have a lot of things that I've taken pictures of. I don't know exactly when my review is going to go up. Typically, Scott Porter does a week of unboxing videos that he shoots over at Hyper RPG, and then on the following Monday mine comes out. But especially after this last set and what I suspect were a bunch of people breaking their embargo dates, I don't know how this is going to work. We will see. Arsenal Roy, I saw something about another X-Men set. Is that what you're referring to? If there's something even more than that, I have not. I have not been on HC Realms yet today, the premier HeroClix forum. Yeah, that one looks cool. But yeah, I should have some really cool Wonder Woman HeroClix content coming out soon, reviews and such. But yeah, all right, that's going to be it for me today. Everyone, again, have a great rest of your day. Follow Jessica and pay attention on the Home Buddies and all the Discords to find out if we're streaming later on today. Don't know. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow. Okay, bye, everybody.